At 3008 in the morning, the dry grass looked silver under the moon. Then the headlights found the empty circles. They were too even to ignore. Bare discs, rimmed with taller stems, sitting in the land like someone had pressed a glass down hard. For years, people spoke about them in Namibia, then Western Australia. Places with heat, sand, silence, and a horizon that keeps its distance. In 2023, a PNAS study used remote sensing and deep learning to identify FC-like patterns at 263 sites across 15 countries and 3 continents. That should have made the mystery smaller. It did not. A pattern that spreads across continents can feel less solved, not more. The survey linked these patterns to low nutrients, high sand content, aridity, high temperatures, and strong seasonal rainfall. The circles live where water matters, where every blade of grass has to bargain with the ground before it can stand. Some scientists say the circles are not made by an animal at all. They say the plants arrange themselves around thirst. A PNAS commentary noted that the origin remains disputed, with 2 major hypotheses dominating: vegetation self-organization and activity by social insects. Self-organization is a quiet phrase. It means grass, water, and soil can form patterns without a planner. No hand, no map. Researchers reporting Australian fairy circles in 2016 proposed plant-water feedback, where grasses around a bare patch draw moisture from the cleared center. Low whisper. But in Australia, some people already had names for these marks. Not new names, old ones, carried through family and country. Those names matter, because they do not sit beside science as decoration. They point to observation, memory, and work done on the ground. A 2023 Nature Ecology and Evolution paper connected Australian bare circles, called Laninji or Minkari, to Aboriginal art, narratives, and soil excavation. The paper did not describe a myth replacing data. It described knowledge meeting data, with termite tunnels under the same hard, bare ground. Walsh and colleagues argued these hard circles are pavement nests occupied by Drepanotermes, harvester termites, based on fieldwork and First Peoples knowledge. Stand near one and the may look dead. Scrape carefully, and the land can answer with chambers, grains, and moving bodies below. Pause. That is the part that changes the silence. The circle is empty only from above. A 2024 response challenged that broader claim, arguing Australian fairy circles and termite lineage are not caused by the same mechanism. So the argument narrows, then widens again. Are we seeing one phenomenon, or several different phenomena wearing the same shape? The Global PNAS Atlas deliberately used the term FC-like patterns because similar-looking circles do not automatically share the same origin. That small phrase matters: like, resembling, close enough to compare, not close enough to convict. The survey also found FC-like landscapes had more stable temporal productivity than nearby areas without the pattern. In plain language, the strange pattern may help the landscape hold steady through hard seasons. The emptiness could be part of survival. That is what makes them difficult to look at for too long. They feel deliberate, even when the explanation is not. Humans are pattern hunters. Give us a ring in the grass, and some old part of the mind starts searching for the maker. In Namibia, termite explanations have long competed with vegetation explanations, especially theories involving sand termites beneath the bare patches. Soft breath. The trouble is that termites are small, and landscapes are large. Evidence can vanish under a boot heel or a season of wind. Plant self-organization models suggest grasses may pull water laterally from bare zones, creating regular spacing without insects directing the pattern. It is not less eerie, because it is natural. A landscape can make geometry without knowing it made geometry. The global survey found FC-like sites in drylands across Africa, Australia, and parts of Asia, expanding the map far beyond the famous locations. But maps can flatten things. From orbit, a lineage, a self-organized patch, and another dryland scar may all whisper the same shape. When you hear one answer offered too cleanly, consider stepping back. Drylands rarely give a single cause for anything that lasts. The PNAS study used environmental predictors and artificial intelligence to identify candidate sites, then compared them with known fairy circle landscapes. A machine can find a repeating mark. It cannot tell you what people have called that place, or why they avoid stepping there. Walsh and colleagues emphasized that Aboriginal knowledge of Lenache and Minkiri includes practical observations about termites and their ground structures. That knowledge was not waiting to be discovered. It was there in language, art, food gathering, and careful attention to country. The unsettling part is not that science disagrees. The unsettling part is how often a place must repeat itself before outsiders listen. The 2024 critique argued that termite pavements described as Lenache differ from Australian fairy circles identified in earlier remote sensing studies. So even the word circle becomes unstable. It may describe shape, surface, origin, culture, or only the way a camera sees land. The Global Atlas focused on vegetation gaps visible in satellite imagery, while the Lenache fieldwork examined hardened termite pavement nests at ground level. Above, the land becomes pattern. Below, it becomes texture. Between those views, the argument lives. Hushed. Imagine kneeling there after midnight. The ground is cold. The air smells like dust and dry roots. Nothing moves on the surface. Then your brush lifts the crust, and the emptiness has architecture. Trypanotermes harvester termites collect grass and build pavement-like nest surfaces, which can appear as hard bare circles in Australian grasslands. A termite explanation is not simple. It asks where termites are present, what species, what soil, what season, and what kind of circle. Vegetation theories also depend on place, because rainfall, evaporation, soil texture, and plant roots shape whether feedback patterns can form. The same geometry can be a different story in another country. That is not failure. That is ecology refusing to behave like a riddle. The PNAS authors suggested FC-like patterns may mark ecosystems adapted to harsh conditions, not merely damaged or dying ground. That turns the image inside out. The blank part may not be absence. It may be the cost of staying alive. If you explore satellite imagery, look without assuming. Similar patterns may hide different makers, and fragile sites should never be disturbed. One respectful approach is to read local and indigenous sources first, then compare field science. The order changes what you notice. The Nature Ecology and Evolution study treated Aboriginal art and narratives as evidence alongside excavation, rather than as background color. That matters, because a name can hold method. It can tell you where to dig, when to look, and what not to mistake. The PNAS commentary described the field as contested, with research still weighing insect activity against vegetation dynamics in multiple regions. No one has to choose wonder over evidence. The evidence is the wonder. Soil, termites, roots, heat, memory, and rain. At night, the circles lose their academic names. They become pale openings in the grass, repeating until the dark runs out. The global survey's 263 sites came from an automated search, but the authors noted that field validation remains essential, because a satellite cannot smell the soil. It cannot hear termites under a crust. It cannot ask who already knows the place. Walsh and colleagues reported excavations of Lenache revealed termite galleries and nest structures beneath the hard, bare surfaces. Pause. That is a quiet kind of reveal. Not a monster in the dark. A city where the ground looked empty. The 2024 Matters Arising paper urged caution in equating all Australian bear circles with termite Lenache, emphasizing mechanism and definition. Caution can sound like disagreement. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is the land asking for finer eyes. If this story stays with you, a quiet like or subscription helps others find these late-night investigations. No rush, just if it fits. You can search for Namibia, Pilbara, and fairy circle research later. Stay on public information and leave living drylands untouched. Across the literature, the strongest current answer may be plural. Termites in some places, plant water feedback in others, and interactions between them. Plural answers are harder to carry. They do not close the door. They leave it open, just enough for wind. Maybe that is why the circles feel so deliberate. They are not messages. They are negotiations, drawn where life nearly fails. The environmental signature from the global survey points to extreme dryland stress, especially sandy soils and climates with sharply seasonal rainfall. A circle in wet country would mean something else. Here, in dry country, the shape belongs to thirst. The disagreement is active because researchers are comparing models, excavations, remote sensing, indigenous knowledge, and regional definitions of the same visible form. That is not confusion to avoid. It is the edge of knowing. The place where a simple circle stops being simple. Before dawn, the headlights turn away. The circles remain behind, pale and patient, holding their makers under the grass.